Hi, everybody. It's Larry again with just yet another Zappa Tech meetup. And today, on today's session, we have Matthias Zax and Boby Jose. So we'll try to Larry, very interesting. Just yet another Zappa conversation. So I am the creator of ClassicJS, and I am also the test automation architect at Oxford University Press. So and as always, we bring you all these lovely meetups so we can share the knowledge across, and hopefully it is insightful to everybody on. And we follow the same format as always, where you send in your questions, you type them into the chat, and I would ask them to the speaker respectively as we go along. All right, so we have with us Matthias today. Hi, Matt, how are you?
Hello.
All right, welcome to the session. And let me introduce Matt to you guys, and then I'll just hand it over to Matt to do his thing. His lovely chat today is on GitHub Actions, supercharging your pipeline for test automation. Matt, over to you.
Thank you very much, Larry. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Can you see my screen already? Just that I know.
You can see it now.
Great. I can see it now. Okay, great. So we had some technical issues in the beginning, but now everything seems to be very okay. Super, yeah. Hello, welcome to everyone. Good morning, lunchtime, or whatever time you are at the moment. Thank you very much for having me here. Thank you very much for giving me the chance to share something about test automation and CI/CD. Yeah. So let me tell you a story. You know, the world is changing fast. Yeah, tools, new approaches appear like every week, month, or at least year, and we need to adapt. Yeah, and also we as testers, test engineers are affected here, and we need to learn new approaches, new technologies, and apply them. And that's the reason today also why I talk here about GitHub Actions as a test engineer. And today I will show you hands-on how to build and integrate your test automation suite to an end-to-end pipeline. But before, let me introduce myself. Who am I? Who is speaking here? And my name is Matthias Zax. I am from Austria, Vienna, and I work as an Agile engineering coach in Raiffeisen Bank International. An Agile engineering coach is supporting teams to increase in their maturity level of software development. So I personally, I'm here specialized in test automation. This is also my passion, and I have the developer by heart attitude, as I call it, because originally I'm a developer. And here I'm also an organizer of community of practice for test automation, so strong internal community. You see already this topic really drives me. I'm also sharing it on conferences, IT magazines, where I'm present. privately, I have a daughter, 3 years old. She's cute. Sorry, delightful to say. And you can see here also my developer heart in the binary numbers. I'm also passionate and also certified griller, which you can see in the pictures, just to get a little bit context. Who is speaking here? If you want to get in contact with myself, please use this contact data, preferable on LinkedIn. Why I talked about GitHub Actions? And this is a test engineer. You know, test automation is software development. And what I'm sure that you know that, but still I want to elaborate on that. So it is test automation, it is software development. Yeah. So we also need to build our product. Yeah, and we also should integrate it to our end-to-end pipeline. And that's the reason why we need to care about it. Yeah. So we need to treat our test automation code with the same passion and same importance as the so-called business-related code. And therefore, we have to integrate into the pipeline. And I know that we all have our job roles. Yeah, we have the developers, test automation engineer, tester, business analyst, and you name them. But with more and more getting into Agile and DevOps teams, we get to cross-functional teams. Yeah, so we need to know more things. Of course, we have our specialization. Yeah, in my case, not test automation, but still, I need to know how development code is done, how I can do requirement engineering, and also how I do CI/CD, how I can build a pipeline. I'm not be the expert here, definitely not. Yeah, but I need to know it and need to apply it. And the time where, you know, the tester or test engineer is the dependency. If it's, hey, can we run our tests? And then you call or write the tester and he is running the test on his local machine. Yeah, these times are over. Yeah, I mean, we want to have kind of the test execution after each deployment, after each build, yeah? And then deployment, of course. And we don't want to ask someone that someone has to execute tests. And there's a solution. I mean, I spoiled in the title, but the solution is Jenkins. Or, I mean, everyone uses Jenkins. And Jenkins is dead. I'm sorry, okay, maybe let's put it on the quote, yeah, because Jenkins is maybe not dead, because I'm very sure a lot of people and engineers are still using it, and good, there may be reasons for that. But GitHub Actions is not in the house, at least in the RBI's or Raiffeisen Bank house. So we went for GitHub. And that's also the reason why we went for GitHub Actions and use it now very, very commonly. This does not mean, this is not a product pitch, please. Yeah, this is just a success story from our company. There are a lot of other tools around, as I mentioned, Jenkins, GitLab CI, or from AWS, and so on and so forth. Yeah, GitHub is just the one which we use. That's the reason why I present GitHub. It's not a marketing pitch. What is GitHub? I mean, what is GitHub Actions, or what is GitHub? I mean, I guess you know that one. Yeah, but still, let me give you some informations to come in the foreground again, to activate it. So GitHub was founded 2008, yeah, and since 2018, it's owned by Microsoft. And Microsoft, you know, the company which brought us ChatGPT, I mean, at least partially. And in GitHub, you know, you have these Git repositories. Yeah, I mean, we all know this. And GitHub Actions is the feature from GitHub, which offers us the continuous integration and continuous delivery capacity. So this is kind of the CI/CD platform from GitHub, what they offer. So here you can build, test, and deploy your product with it. And the cool stuff is here, everything is stored in your Git repository. Yeah? So everything is part of this GitHub universe, it's part of the GitHub repository, so everything is there. Also the full integration of your pipeline. And here we always talk about workflows. Yeah, this is how GitHub names it. What it will be in details you will see during the talk. And the stuff is running on virtual machines. And here they support Linux, Windows, and even macOS. So this is about GitHub Actions in general. What is it more? Yeah, so let's dig a little bit deeper. What do we have here? We have here several components. And you will get it, what each component will do. So the workflow, this is kind of the highest level. Yeah? This is the configurable automated process. Here, or those get triggered by events, by specific events in the repository or even outside. and those can trigger such workflow. In the workflow, you have then jobs, and each job has a set of steps. And in the step, you can then write your shell script or your actions. What an action is, you will also get during the talk. And you have also the other runners. So the runner is nothing more as kind of the operating system or the machine, where your workflow runs on. For me, it's always very useful if I get a picture, and therefore I draw one. So you can see here this beautiful rectangle, which is our repository. And I mentioned already, here events can happen. Different kind of events. For example, push, so something, your source code changed, or a scheduler, you have a nightly build, for example, or something with a pull request. It gets opened, closed, reopened, and you can trigger those, or you can act on these events, and you can trigger workflow. But also outside the repository dispatch event, for example, is an event which is happening through an API core, and this is very good to integrate it, especially also with other systems. As I mentioned, we have in the workflow, that's kind of a level below. Here then we have the jobs. This is kind of what the workflow is made of. On the job, this is running on a runner. It can execute on a runner or one on multiple runners. It can also run in parallel on multiple runners. And also you can have several jobs which also get executed parallelly, except they are dependent on each other. On the job is made of steps. Multiple steps. So, for example, the step can be a shell script. You, I don't know, copy a file or delete a file or whatever. And an action is a reusable component. And this is, for example, checking out the code and so on. Let me also draw the flow. So you can see here a workflow can have multiple events. This can have then a set of jobs with the runners, with the steps, and the action. So, for example, you have a push event that triggers a workflow. It will run on Ubuntu, and it will check out the code, it will build it, and will upload your artifact to an Artifactory, as an example. So what is this workflow? Well, the workflow at the end produces an artifact, usually. And so, for example, you have a Java project, and you will build it. So the artifact will be then the jar or var file or a zip file. So this is a result. Workflows are reusable. That's a really powerful feature. I will not show this one today, but this is really powerful. You can write a workflow and reuse it. Same as the actions. And the unique identifier is kind of the name. So the first line of your YAML file will be then your name build here, for example. And you can also have here a run name. This is then displayed on the execution. And you will see this also afterwards. You can then use also the GitHub context, what you can see here. So a variable that it makes more sense. But you see it afterwards, and then it will be more clear. We have the events. The events are, they trigger the action. And it represents an activity in the repository or even outside that will trigger this run. And we have, meanwhile, more than 35 different events. No worries, I will not go through these events now. I just put this number here that it should visualize how powerful the platform is already. Because with each event, there comes complexity. And with complexity, you can do sophisticated and mature things. This is really, really nice. And you can use, of course, multiple events. So you can say, okay, on the push and the pull request, or on the issue and pull request, you run a workflow. So you combine this to make things easier. And on the event, you have then types, which is then even makes it more complex, and branches. So for example, you can see it here in the code snippet. We have here our pull request event. On only if it gets opened or reopened on the main branch, then the events, or then the workflow gets triggered. So I guess now it's more clear how you can interact on the events. The jobs are a set of steps that run in sequence to accomplish a task what you want to do. And each job runs on its own runner. It can run multiple runners, but always on its own. There is a unique ID. This is for the job name. This is important, especially if you want to get some output of a job. You can then use it by the unique ID and so on. This is especially important if you write complex workflows. And the jobs run in parallel, except if they're dependent. So they can be dependent on each other. Of course, this makes sense. In this example, you can see here, this is a job called deploy, and it runs on the Ubuntu latest. And it depends, or it needs the prepare environment job, which makes sense that the environment is there before you deploy. And we have steps. They're pretty simple. They are just the shell scripts or the actions. They run in order, so you have multiple steps, and they of course always run on the same runner. Why? Because the runner is defined at the job level. That's the reason why the steps of course always run on the same runner, but still it's important to understand. In the example here, we use here an action, the first one, which is the checkout action, and the second one is just a shell script, and this one is a Maven command where you skip the test, which you of course never should do. And what is this action now? So actions are this the individual tasks that you can use to combine, and you can create jobs and customize your workflow with it. This is one of the core features of GitHub. You also have then the marketplace, the GitHub marketplace, where a lot of actions are provided. Ones are from GitHub, ones are from third-party providers. And those are kind of the building blocks, and those really empower your workflow. Here you get then the reuse and the big benefit. And there is the naming convention. So first you always have the author, then you have the action name, and then the version. This could be the version number, release version number. This could be a commit hash, or this could be a branch. So as in the example here, you can see first is the app thread, so a third-party provider. Then we have the SAST scan action, and we take here the master or main. And with this, you can use variables which are set on the action. Important to know if the also from GitHub they approve actions. Then you have a special sign on the marketplace. I always recommend to use those. If it's not approved by GitHub, then you have the risk that someone will not maintain it anymore, or it gets deprecated. So be careful which actions you're using. Good. And last, the runners. As I mentioned, these are kind of the virtual machines in the background. So there are GitHub runners, so runners which are provided from GitHub, and also self-hosted ones. So the GitHub runners are Linux, Windows, and macOS. Self-hosted ones are then dependent on what you are doing, but this feature is pretty important, especially if you're working on an enterprise company or a regulated company where you have higher security regulations, because you can run them inside your network. So it's secured. Of course, you have some drawbacks with it or some limitations, but this is, especially for us, was very important that we have this, that we have our own runners, and to use them. To give an example, you can see we use the two runners, Ubuntu and macOS. This is how you use it. What's that? And everyone thinks, that's a workflow. Wow, exactly. Then you understood everything what I said really well. But it's also a YAML file. I will not now explain what a YAML file is, just for those who don't know it at all. The YAML is just the syntax where the workflow is written in. So we need this .yml extension or .yaml, whatever. In GitHub, we store it under the .github/workflows folder. That's a requirement. You need to do that. And from YAML, here is important to use white spaces, no tabs, and a lot of other things which you can use. Here's a beautiful cheat sheet if you're interested into it, or Google it. I will not go into the details, but I will show you the example that you understand. Okay, that's a YAML file. If you have never saw one before, could be, why not? Good. In my opinion, especially as I'm a developer, the most important thing is, or the most interesting is to see something live. And we are also now ready to go to to create our own GitHub action or to create our own workflow. So what we want to do, we have an application. Of course, this one is prepared. Yeah, it's in Java. It's your Spring Boot, Maven, whatever. Not so important. It's a digital bank application, and we also have test automation prepared. So the test automation is written with Playwright. Also important, I will not go into those details. We will not go into the build or into the test cases, which I have prepared. They're anyhow very, very, very basic. And of course, everything is in GitHub and everything is marked as public. So you can check out the repositories afterwards as you wish. Yeah. Good. Now let me jump to the browser. Okay. Okay, this is GitHub. Let me just make it bigger. Okay, so this is full screen mode. Good. This is GitHub. Don't need to explain it. What I have prepared here is our repositories. Let me just check them. Okay, so this is the first one. I will just trigger the action. So here you have, this is where you have all the actions. I will just trigger it because it will take some time to run. Here I have input feed, and now I will explain it. Good, let's go back. So this is our application. You can see here our beautiful digital bank. Yeah, as I mentioned, you can of course check it out afterwards if you want to do so. Here we have
not cutting into onto here, but we still have your slide on the screen. We're not seeing the
oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much for jumping in. That's important to know. Do you see it now?
Yeah, yep. We're looking at GitHub now, yeah.
Good. I need to use that one, of course. Good. What do you have missed? Not so much. In the GitHub actions, so in this tab, you see all your actions. I just triggered that one. So if you click here, and we have here, we use the manual event. I will show you afterwards. And here I just added the IP address and click on start. You see it's already triggered. It runs. I do this just in advance because it takes some minutes. You know, Java, you need to build the stuff. And it's not so interesting to watch a build running. Yeah, from the repository, yeah, simple Java project. Yeah, don't go into these details. Here's the GitHub workflows. Yeah, so here I've stored all my workflows. This one, which we will check, is that one. And what do you see here? So you see, this is our name. It's build and upload. Could also be a better name, to be honest. So what we do, we build, deploy it to UART, and we will also put out the actor. This is the one who triggers the workflow. We use the workflow dispatch event. What I also want to show you, if you go to the edit, in the GitHub, you have a quite good supportive, I call it now IDE. Yeah. So always if you all events, it's very easy to use it. So for example, the push event, you can use the branches, whatever, main and so on. But for this, now we have the repository dispatch event. And as an input, we have here our IP address. Then we set an environment. This is just a set of variables which we can use then in our jobs. So first we have here our system on the test IP address, which we get here. And then Tomcat path port, which is of course always important. Then we come already to the jobs. This is then kind of free text. This is what I always like to check the environment first. Could also be after the build. I do it now before the build if everything is up and running. So I just do a short lookup. First I print out the IP address. Then I use here an SSH action. So I just look, is the port available on this IP address? If so, then we run the build, test, and deploy action, which is dependent on the check environment. Yeah. By the way, here you can see secrets. What secrets are, I will show you afterwards, because this is important to understand how GitHub and the GitHub actions deals with secret management. This is, I guess, important for each and every company. So we use here the user and the SSH key, which I'm stored in the GitHub context. Good. So we use here our environment UART. Yeah. Environment management is also possible. We run on Ubuntu latest, and here you can see we use the first action. It's the checkout action, and then we run, for example, here a setup Java. Yeah, it's always a fresh runner, so nothing is on site. Meanwhile, there is something on site, but always care about it to install your stuff by your own. And here on the right side, you always have the marketplace already. Yeah. So, for example, if you type in here Java, you get the setup Java. You see here all this verified by GitHub. And the cool stuff, you have immediately the code snippets here. Yeah. So you can copy paste it, put it there, and just set the variables what you need, like version, distribution, if you want to have some caching and so on. Good. Then we run our unit tests. After they passed, we run our build of the package. We do some renaming. We upload it out afterwards. It will upload it to the workflow run. You will see this after the workflow is finished. Then we do some cleanup on our server, so on our destination. Of course, we want to clean up the previous deployments. We copy it there. Then we run some. Then this job is finished. Then we go to the next job. Here we run an install. Very often you have to do some installations. Yeah. Here, just for the sake of demonstration, I run here on Ubuntu, and I will just copy it from one folder to the Tomcat folder. So for the deployment for the Tomcat folder, but very often you need to do some configurations, preparations, whatever. Yeah. And after this one passed, we run our automated tests. And these tests are written in another repository. Yeah? So we need to trigger those. And one way is that we fire a curl, so just an API call. Yeah? So this one event which is outside the repository. And we trigger our player test and also hand over the system on the test, so the IP address. Good. So this is from that side. Let me go now to the run. Okay, I come up there. So let's go to the GitHub Actions. It's already finished. It's green. Good. Everything is live, Good. So this is what I triggered before. Yeah. So we have here the check environment. It prints the IP address. So everything nice. Yeah. Does some things not so interesting. What is more interesting? The build. So you can see here all the steps. We do this. We run the unit tests, for example. You have all the standard output there. Yeah. You have here the build results. Whatever you need. If something fails, you have it there. You can check it. If there are some secrets and so on, they are always marked. You cannot read them. And after the build, I also run the upload API, the upload action. And then you can see here is the artifact of this workflow, of the build, yeah? And we upload it. So already here, this is the part of the CI. Yeah? So we have run our build, and we have our application or artifact ready for everyone. Yeah? If you have the version and so on, everyone can download it, run it, try it out. Good. Yeah. Then we install the application. Then we trigger the test. So here we can see that we executed our curl, and of course we need to check now, did it work? So this is the other repository. It's the Digibank playwright tests. And so, as I mentioned, simple tests. Here we also have workflows. For example, the run tests. And here we have the repository dispatch event. This is the event for the API core. Yeah, that's important. Here we have also the types, which is very important. This is part of the body. So that you understand what I mean. We check the time, 5 minutes, good. So this is here the event type. Yeah, this is mandatory. And here we say the trigger tests. This is the match. And the system of the test is the IP address, which we of course want to use because maybe this changes. Good. Then here we set it also to the environment. This is the payload of this request. What we are doing here, we have here just one job. which is called end-to-end test. We run on Ubuntu latest. We check out our source code. Then here we use npm, which is JavaScript. So we run or build our application. And then here we set a local variable and run our tests. And afterwards, here we have also the condition. This is really important in that case, because if the tests will fail, this step will fail, and then your job will stop, and you will lose your test reports, which is not good. So use conditions. So if always, then doesn't matter if it fails or not, it will run it. And here we again just upload here the index HTML file in that case that we can check the test results. Good, let's check if it worked, hopefully. 7 minutes ago, so okay, it seems to be. You can see here also kind of a beautiful run name. Yeah, if you're the IP address, the trigger, which event was it, and who did it, which is always quite good to know this information. Good, if we go here, everything is green. So let's jump immediately to the test result. We have here a test report.html. Let's download it. And of course, let's look into it. So I'm also curious if it worked. Very good. It's just a very simple test. What we're doing, we go into the login. We are filling some login data. So you can see here the IP address is the right one, this one, and at the end we just do an assertion that the page title is right. So everything looks good. Awesome. So what we did now, we built our application, we run our unit test, we deploy it to a server, we run it, and then we trigger the API tests against this application, test it, and now we can, deploy to the next stage, run again. This is now just some more servers, some more configurations, and this is how it works. One thing what I promised you is missing. This is secret, sorry. First, this is also environment management. You saw you can set the environment. Here you can then set the variables, what you want to do. And for the secrets management on the actions, you can see here those secrets. You can set it on environment level. You can set them on organization level, what I just did here for the API key. And those secrets you set once, and then afterwards you cannot read them anymore. You can change it, but you cannot read it anymore. Only through a workflow execution. So only GitHub itself can, and you can also not output it or anything. Good, let's come back. Last slide. GitHub Actions benefits, or to sum it up, no installation needed, which means kind of no maintenance. So you don't have to care about the runners and so on. You just say Ubuntu latest and go for it. You just do some configuration. You don't do any maintenance of this stuff. Awesome. It's pretty fast. We want to have fast cycle times, so from commit to kind of customer can use it. Here we are really fast. Things run in parallel. You don't have to care about much, and this is the reason why it's very fast execution. The runner's been really fast up. It supports kind of any language, framework, or environments, because it's up to you. You get this blank Ubuntu machine, and you can use any languages. I don't know here any restrictions. For most of them, you have already prepared actions. If it's something very exotic, you have to do it by your own. It follows the try principle, So don't repeat yourself. You have the marketplace, you can reuse a lot of actions, you can write your own actions, which you can reuse, you can write your own workflows, which you can reuse, which is really good, because clone code, you should not reinvent the wheel. And at the end, it's pretty easy. I mean, of course, the source was prepared, but still in half an hour, I show you how to build an end-to-end pipeline. And you can, of course, do really sophisticated things. Believe me, we have crazy stuff done with it. So it's very powerful. Thank you very much for your attention. Hopefully I was good in time. If you have now any questions, I don't know if we do this now or afterwards, But yeah, that's from my side. Thank you very much for your attention. If you want to get in contact, please, you can also write me on LinkedIn as ways. Thank you.
Yeah, very interested, Matthias. Very, very interested, and looking at some of the a lot of the comments that coming back. We know GitHub Actions is, I would say, the new kid on the block. Recently, a couple of years back, and we're looking at a lot of people talking about Jenkins dying and is it dead and why they're not going to use it. Could you elaborate for some of us why we would go with GitHub Action and not Jenkins in any particular case?
If I can elaborate, why not to use Jenkins?
Yeah. Okay. Why? What I'm saying is Jenkins is dead. Jenkins in itself is a session now. Yeah.
With Jenkins, you always have to do some maintenance, yeah, and you always kind of lock. I mean, for me, of course, Jenkins is powerful. Yeah, you can use it with a lot of plugins and so on. You can also do great stuff, but someone has to care about it. And I really like the fact, especially with GitHub Actions, that you profit from this marketplace. Yeah, we integrated now security checks with linters and so on. You just use these actions and it's integrated. And with Jenkins, it's not that easy, in my opinion. Yeah? And it's pretty. I have not seen any new change or new technology increasing that fast in this company. Yeah, because usually if we come with a new tool, it takes time that people really go on it. Yeah, but most of the teams which had already Jenkins in place, they switched more or less immediately to GitHub Actions. And they were like, thank you. Yeah, we waited for this because they don't want to deal with it anymore. They don't want to run the server before Jenkins. They don't want to do this. Yeah, this is something we know nowadays. We are all short in resources. Yeah, we want to optimize our output, and no one wants to care about a build server. Yeah.
I mean, that's interesting. That's something we look at. But now we have GitHub Actions, and then we have GitLab. How much of a similarity it have within the both of them?
To be honest, I don't. I mean, I also use for some project GitLab, but I have not built the other pipelines with it. I really went with GitHub Actions. And I don't know if GitHub Actions is now better than GitLab CI or how they call it, or AWS CodeStar or how it's doing. I don't know if there's a big difference. Yeah, I can only speak for GitHub Actions that there is a huge community around it. I guess it's the biggest community, especially for the open source contribution. And therefore, was also our driver to go for GitHub Actions and not or for GitHub. And not for one of the competitors. But this does not mean that they are not good, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true. It's all about, at the end of the day, it all comes down to usage, which is better and which is suited for your particular thing at the time. So, I mean, that in itself is brilliant. Well, for me, I have both Jenkins and GitHub Actions and some stuff and running, and I use also Circle CI, sorry, for it. From your experience, could you say or tell us why GitHub Action is becoming so popular in the industry today?
I guess because it's very easy to use. Well, maybe one thing which I have not mentioned: everything what you have seen now, yeah, is free. Everyone can use it. I pay nothing for this. Yeah? GitHub provides this for free. Yeah, of course, up to a degree. Yeah, you can do it now production-wise. But this is if you have an open source project, you can run it for free, use it for free. That's really nice because this is how you get used to the technology, and this is then of course how you bring it to your company. Maybe it's a mix of it. GitHub, of course, has a huge benefit that a lot of open source projects run on GitHub. And if you're already there, then you try to explore it. You try all features. You start with the tagging, with labeling. You evolve your project. You bring in some quality standards. So because this is also what I do, and I guess we all do. If we check out the Git repository, so for example, I want to try out a new framework, I go to the GitHub repository and check, latest commits. Does the last build work? You just scroll down and see them the labels. And maybe SAS checks and how many vulnerabilities. And this is pretty easy to develop with GitHub Actions. And this comes kind to a quality sign or label for source code. If the last commit is, or if the last build breaks, this is for me a sign that maybe there is some issues on the main branch now. And I guess altogether come to the fact that people really jump on this topic on GitHub Actions and want to use it, and also want to use it in the company.
Okay, thanks for that. And I'm not seeing any more questions. What I would say is if anybody have any further questions to ask, they could always pop it in, and we could always get Matt. I'm sure Matt would love to respond to them at a later date if they do come in. And saying that, any final words from you, Matt, before we send you off for the day?
Stay tuned. If you like to talk, try it out by your own. If you also have some, please, if you have some optimizations or feedback, if something was too long, or please just drop me a message on LinkedIn. I'm always very open for feedback. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your attention. Hopefully it was interesting for you. Give it a try. I like it. A lot of people like it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that. And it was a pleasure having you here today. Okay, then yes, have a good one.
Thank you very much. The pleasure's mine.
Okay, that was Matt letting us all know how GitHub Actions and what we could do with it and how easy it is, plus the fact that it's free. And we all love free stuff in this space. All right, now my next speaker today is Boby Jose, and he is a public speaker. He's a published author, and things like that. So he's going to talk to us today about the leadership dilemma when coming to test automation. All right, so so here we go. Hi, Boby, and how are you?
Hi, Larry. I'm fine. Thank you. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. We can hear you fine.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you for for a nice introduction.
The pleasure is mine. So, like I say, so without further ado, the floor is yours.
Okay. Let me share my screen. Just checking, Larry, whether it is loading correctly.
Yeah, whilst we're doing that, I think there's another good time to mention all this is happening because of Zappeltech. And they allow us to share this space and have all these wonderful conversations with some of the people in the industry who is at top of the game, as we would say, and willing to have the time to share some of the knowledge on to everybody. What I would put a lot of stress on at this point is if you have any questions as we go along, just push them in the chat, and I would ask them to Boby at the end. Okay, Boby, yeah, screen is up good and we can see you all now. So back to you.
Thank you, Larry. I was just testing mainly whether everything is working fine. Um, uh, Thank you for this opportunity. And um, before I start going through the leadership dilemma, I will give a brief introduction about myself and the reason which I thought it would be really useful, this presentation, to everyone. So I have over 2 decades of experience in software testing, test management, leading various projects in kind of end-to-end spectrum of testing. So I'm a published author. My book on test automation, mainly the leadership side, A Manager's Guide, was published by British Computer Society in a year back. To talk about myself, or more about myself, I was the head of the second largest healthcare application in the world. It was NHS Choices. Right now, it is known as NHS.uk. And the people in UK or Europe, they are probably more familiar with that site. During that time, I got the opportunity to test the world's largest SharePoint implementation. It was a massive implementation. Then I was a lead tester for the world's second busiest airport, or the Europe's busiest airport. And then I manage testing, mainly the head of testing of the largest service desk in the world, head of testing for many sites and solutions. I also manage UAT for a Swiss agro company, and which we covered user acceptance testing across more than 100 countries. So, and also I started my testing career as a test engineer. I started with an offshoring company where the client bases are mainly in Middle East, US, and Asia Pacific. Then I moved to a product-based company, and I got opportunity to test some of the complex product in biometrics and bioinformatics and material science. That was almost 20 years back. 20 years back, we tested products like three-dimensional and so and so. So if you have been in this industry for many years, you might remember in 20 years back, it was mainly use IBM IntelliStation to test complex solutions or three-dimensional, and the monitor was more or like probably a size of a washing machine these days. On top of that, I'm a MBCS, a member of British Computer Society. I'm an advanced test manager by ISTQB. I'm certified in Scrum Master, Product Owner, and also I'm certified in Prince, Foundation and Practitioner. More than that, I believe my experience is across multiple domains. I have seen a project from the contract or pre-contract, then the discovery, initiation, implementation, business as usual, run phase, and decommission. So I have seen project end to end from a concept to decommission. I have also tested so both product and service-based testing. So I have extensive experience in product testing and also consulting areas. So and various methodologies like waterfall, agile, DevOps, CI/CD, and all different kind of methodologies. So what I'm trying to emphasize here, during my 2 decades of testing experience, I have seen wide varieties of solutions. And that is a key reason which I wrote a book on test automation, because very rarely we come across with people, they have wider experience in different solutions or different methodologies or different industries. Most of the cases, people have very limited knowledge, and then they use that limited knowledge to give a definition for test automation. And most of the cases, the end result is not always as we thought or as we would like to see. So I'm going to cover 5 leadership dilemmas in testing, mainly test automation. When everyone is a leader, right? When it comes to a junior test automation analyst to a CEO's level, they have different challenges when it comes to taking decisions, and these challenges are different for different business model. When it comes to product testing, they face a different challenge compared to a consulting or service integration, and subject to all sort of contracts. So there are different kind of challenges, and in this session mainly I will go through some of those challenges, some of the interesting aspects about test automation, and again you need to consider this is subject to different industries and solutions. You all heard about Rex Black, right? The founder of ISTQB, and also he wrote many books about testing and test automation. His books on ISTQB, Advanced Test Management, is quite famous. So he made this statement, I think in last year or year before, in his book on artificial intelligence and machine learning testing, published by British Computer Society. It's a quite interesting one. Test automation in long run is less likely to succeed than an open heart surgery. So there is a study done by Khan in 2000, and his main finding is, and it is based on, Rex Black made the statement based on that studies. So think about people above 80 years old, and they go through a heart surgery. Or people above 70 years go through a heart surgery. The studies prove that 80% of those people, they survive after 5 years of that heart surgery. Now compare this to test automation. If you don't change the technology, if you don't change the tools, how many test automation can survive after 5 years without major changes? And the studies shows it is less than 50%. So it's an interesting statement, probably a controversial statement, but test automation is sometimes this success of test automation is sometimes it's less than heart surgery, open heart surgery. What's the main reason? Because some reasons are sometimes we go with the trend. We read a lot of articles, we hear from people about the success stories, and we just take that and try to implement in a project or product, and then without really seeing what's the purpose of test automation or what's the objectives. So success versus failures, we all have, probably many of you have seen a lot of failures in test automation, or not the success we thought we failed to achieve. So automation goal, that is the first leadership dilemma. What is the purpose of test automation? What's the objective? Or why do we need test automation? So, so when it comes to the goal of test automation, we should not, we must address this question: what is our goal? What's the purpose? And what's the objective of test automation? So, a couple of things. Understanding the objectives. In some cases, objective is to regression testing. We have multiple releases, frequent releases. We need a solid automation package to do regression testing. Or DevOps, CI/CD, Agile methodology. The automation is heart of those methodologies. So that is one reason. But when it comes to a leadership or a leader, they may have probably a different priorities or objectives or goals from test automation. So it is always good to understand or try to understand what's the leadership priorities or objectives or goals for test automation, and address in any projects. Don't go with the flow. Don't pick up any a tool which the tool is already in your organization, or don't pick up any tool which is just free. You really see what is the purpose of the goal of test automation, and pick up the right methodologies, right tool. And sometimes we don't need any automation also. Then you need to take that decision. So, and again, what level of automation is required? Do we need a, a really good automation framework, or what kind of scripting is required, what kind of tools is required, or some cases we may just need a record and playback that is sufficient for automation. So we need to really understand the goal, objective, purpose, then look around for the tool, and see what we are going to achieve during that automation. And also always try to see how to measure the success of automation. What's the cost benefit analysis? There are plenty of formulas available, but what as a leaders, what we really need to look into the aspect is it really required, or what's the real objective and benefit of this automation? Market forces. This is quite interesting. So I will show you a list of companies, and who are these companies? What are these companies, and what is common in these companies? I'm struggling to share.
Yeah, I think Bob having some technical difficulties at the minute.
Yeah, I'm struggling to share, Larry. I'm just trying to see if I can share again.
Oh, okay, you dropped off. Okay, let's see what's happening.
Can you see my screen, Larry?
Yes, I can see your screen. I can see your screen.
Okay, and let me see if you can see this full screen. No.
Not yet. I'm still seeing your screen, but not the full screen as yet.
Let me share once again. And
sorry, folks, for this little. As we know, we living in the tech world, so sorry for this little, for this little glitch. But we'll have it up and running shortly. And don't forget to push all your questions into the chat while all this is happening, so we can have a nice little chat with Bob after he's completed his talk.
You can see my screen, right?
Not as yet. Okay, yeah, we're good now. You're good to go.
Okay. So these companies, right? The top three companies, or many more of those companies, we all know they ran out of business, and reasons were sometimes it's quite interesting. It is market forces. Probably a decade back or 2 decades back, we use IT or test automation to enable business. So when it comes to IT, it's always people consider it is a business support function, like HR or or a similar function. So it's a business enabled function. But over a period of time, probably last 10 years, it's completely changed to IT as a main business. So if you see many of these retail companies or many of these supply chain companies, it is more than the core business. It is IT is their main business. And if they fail to bring changes at the right time, they struggle to survive. Debenhams is a good example in UK. At one point of time, they were the market leaders, but they couldn't bring a e-commerce system on time, and that was one of the main reasons Debenhams lost their market, lost the customers, and forced to close down. And the other companies like Amazon, Airbnb, Deliveroo, we know or Uber. It is mainly the IT is a business, and they use a service to and IT to utilize use the potential of probably a retail or a taxi service. So that is the market forces, and where exactly the test automation and or leaders role in those kind of scenarios. Most of the cases, the industry or business, they cannot wait for months or years for the new solutions. They expect the new solution to be on the market as soon as possible. So it's a quick to market is one of the key success factors for many of this business. First in the market, that is another reason. So many companies, they want to be first in the market, or they would like to be very quick in the market. And IT technologies, we know these days, that enable the business. That's one reason whenever there is a new technologies, companies are very keen to understand that technology, and they come up with a product or a service, and then they ask the implementation team or delivery team to deliver this as soon as possible, and then the pressure on the testing. Most of the cases, we don't get months or weeks to complete our testing and deliver the solution. So as most of you know, that many companies, that's the reason they moved from that shift right, that CI/CD approach, or DevOps approach, test on production, rather than rather than following a waterfall approach. So that is probably one of the key challenges for many of the leaders when it comes to test automation. And it is part of that purpose. What exactly we need? What's the objective for testing? Is it something really enable the product development, or is it really help them to be quick in the market, rather than taking ages to complete testing? Building a team. This is one of the key aspects or dilemma for the test manager or any leaders or anyone who is holding a leadership position in testing. It is always difficult to build a team, and because there are various factors, right? Hiring the right skills, or if you have people in the organization, upskill them, and then there are new technologies, and the people needs to understand what is these technologies, and also it is most of the case it is difficult to get the right kind of people or skills from the market. And once we hire, once we start to deliver, retaining them is also a key factor. So building a successful testing team or test automation team, or leading a successful test automation team, that is another key dilemma for many leaders in testing and IT. And also when it comes to framework, get the right people to develop the framework or understand the framework. Certification, there are plenty of certification there available, but how to help team to get some of the certification, get the training, and deliver or take the certifications. Now, the other side is the interview techniques. How to hire a right person within probably a short span of time. You may get probably 30 minutes, an hour to make a decision whether this person is the right person for testing and test automation. So the interview methods, techniques, and what kind of questions we ask, how to get a decision or conclude a decision in a short span of time. Then continuous learning, that is an build an organization which can provide a continuous learning to its people. So the leader should have these skills, and they always come across with a lot of questions and dilemmas how to do all these things. And again, building a test automation team is not an easy job. I would I would recollect a statement from one of my prior managers, Peter Hansen. So once he said, building a test automation team is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And it is very much true. It takes its own time. Even if you hire experienced automation testers from the market or automation consultants from market, then building them, using them and building a team for a long run, it takes time. It takes a lot of effort. And it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And so if you're planning to build or planning to retain a test automation team, plan for a long-term, come up with a long-term plan. So it's always a marathon. Technology, tools, and techniques. This is an interesting area. Let me move to the next slide. And so I have listed down a lot of jargons from the industry. These are some of those words we come across probably on a daily basis. Agile, Selenium, CI/CD, ChatGPT, Metaverse, Cypress, mobile, consulting, waterfall, all those things. And often these technology tools and terminologies that confuse people. And many cases, they go with the flow. And then it is always a challenge to the leaders. So for example, these days, most of the companies or development, we talk about DevOps or CI/CD, and then somebody probably talk about waterfall on top of that. And then leaders get really confused. What exactly I need to use? What's the benefit? And we get a lot of papers and advice from the industry that the advantage of all those things. And very rarely we come across with what's the disadvantages. And more than that, get all the details to take a decision which one is suitable for my current problem or my organization or my project or product. So we always come across with lot of terminologies like this, and managers always struggle, or leaders always struggle. What's the right approach? And again, I suggest we need to go back to the first goal, the purpose and objective of test automation. Is what is our purpose? Why do we need test automation? And if you realize you don't need it, don't do that. And once you realize you need test automation, then go and spend some time rather than just pick up a tool or just pick up a marketing material and try to implement that. Do a detailed research, do a cost benefit analysis, and see what is fit for purpose. Return on investment. This is one of my most favorite topics. The reason is this is very vague. Every time when it comes to test automation or testing, people use return on investment and come up with a lot of complex formulas, a lot of projections. And I haven't seen any cases people project, okay, the return on investment is not good, so we should not do automation. Almost all the cases, we put the data which is suitable to us and come up with a massive return on investment. But what is the key elements of the return on investment? Most of the investment we need to do upfront, we need to do immediately. And that is a challenge for the leaders or leadership. They need to find the resources, they need to find the money to do the immediate investment. And return, it can be a couple of months or years down the line. And the return is probably based on a lot of projected formulas and assumptions. And assumptions can always change. Every time the assumption is wrong, we don't come back and change this return on investment. So when you calculate a return on investment, there are tangible and benefits and intangible benefits. You need to consider them carefully and challenge the formula you use, or challenge the assumptions you use, because very rarely we can calculate return on investment very correctly. So this is one key thing when it comes to test automation or any testing. The purpose is more important than a perfect solution. What is fit for purpose is more important than a perfect solution. And again, I would like to associate this with the first one. What is the objective and purpose of our test automation? The reason is, many cases, we tend to ignore what is fit for the customers or end users or the organization. And we always look for a perfect solution. We try to automate everything, or try to automate the whole regression package, or we try to automate or try to get a perfect CI/CD method or a DevOps, or we do a test-driven development, and we try to automate everything rather than thinking what is really fit for purpose. Is it really useful? In a long run, would it be really helpful? And that matters a lot when it comes to decision making, and that is a key factor for many leaders. So if you are on a leadership position, or if you are in a decision making position, you need to consider all those factors before blindly go for test automation. So in this book, The Test Automation, a Manager's Guide, what I try to explain, that mainly the two aspects of test automation. First is, why do we do automation? And what is the purpose of test automation? And those areas I mainly covered the leadership dilemma. And as a leader, ask, what is test automation and why do we do? You take your project or a product or your current project and ask, what's the purpose? What's the objective? Do we really need? If you have a solid answer, a sound answer for that, then move to the next part of this book. That is, how and when. How do we do the automation? In that case, we analyze the tool, we pick up the right test cases, we see whether we have resources, and how to hire people, all those aspects. And then when, mainly how much time it will take. Can we fit our automation plan with the product development plan or project development plan? Or would it really, because after all, test automation is a project itself. We are developing a software product. So those are the 5 key leadership dilemmas, but there are plenty more leadership issues and questions when it comes to automation, starting from cost, the purpose, the objectives, the time to market, the resources, skills, and moreover, what is fit for purpose. So that's what I try to cover in this book. I try to cover in this presentation. So if you are on any level of test automation, ask these questions to your project or your product and see what's the answers you get before you jump into automation or you blindly follow a market trend. If you would like to know more about test automation, you can always contact me. If you would like to buy this book, you can contact me. I can offer you an author's discount. And I regularly update the leadership dilemmas in my LinkedIn and Twitter accounts. So feel free to contact me. My email address is here. And thank you for your time. And any question, feel free to ask.
Yeah, thanks for that, Bob. And yeah, very interesting. But I have a question off the bat before I even jump into what questions the audience may ask. And it's one of the things to do is with building a proper, and we're using the word proper lightly, a proper automation team. What initially you need a starting point. So let's hire the first guy, and then we'll build a team around him. See that first guy, what do you actually look for in that first guy?
I look for mainly those for questions whether he can answer. One is the strategic side, the thought process of that person, whether that person can think strategically, a long term, rather than very tactical thinking. That the person who got really good experience in managing team, developing test strategies, test plan, implementing them. So that is mainly the managerial leadership skills. And then the second part is the technical skills, because you are mainly hiring the first person to your team. So the person with wider technical knowledge, I won't limit that person for a one particular technology or one particular tool. So if you are hiring a person, think about the person should have wider experience in test automation, not just functional testing, good experience in performance, volume, security, usability, all those aspects of test automation, because it is not just or functional testing or a performance testing. So these two skills. Then certainly we look for the soft skills like team management skills, and managing people in communication, interaction, those skills. But two major skills is, one is that planning, management, and strategy skills that always associated with the leadership skills, and then the other side, the technical skills, wider technology knowledge, and also the person should be a good motivator, because it is not always easy to build a test automation team. Always come across with challenges. So the person who can anticipate challenges, anticipate problem, motivate a team, build a team, that kind of a person. So as I mentioned earlier, Larry, building a test automation team, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint.
Yeah, it's true. That is true. And my follow-on question to that is and then it's something based on tooling. Now you find when you have automation team, so we put this team together, and then you tend to reach this you tend to deal with management, and then management say, no, we can't afford that, or no, we can't this. How do you manage that space where you're building your let's say your framework, you're building out your framework, and how much does the upper management have influence over what you put together as a framework?
Okay, there are two aspects. I think most of the companies or individuals that come across with this problem. One is the test automation tool. There are licensed tool, and there are various kind of license model, and it cost, mainly it's cost involved. And there are open source freewares. Initially, some of them we don't see any cost, but again, there are costs involved, because you need a software. Even if it is probably a cloud based or an on premises, you need infrastructure, you need effort. So everything, there is cost involved. There is nothing called free. There is no free meal. So that there are the two aspects you need to consider. Then we always, or most of the cases, we go with industry trends and jargons. Like you go and do a search in Google about test automation tool. It will list so many tools, and then we can see so many reviews. But you need to go back and see what is our requirements, what is the scope of my product or project or company, what kind of tool I need. Sometimes you don't need any fancy tools. You may need probably a Python script or a shell script which you can use and do the automation. So that kind of decision we need to take. And then automation is not just functional automation, right? There are various levels of automation. It can be an API level, it can be a product scripting level, then it can be functional automation or performance. It can be a pen testing, it can be a build verification, or a lot of non-functional sides you can automate. And some of those things you don't need any tool. Now, I will cover another aspects of automation, Larry. When it comes to massive consulting companies and system integrators, and they implement a lot of tools like Remedy or ServiceNow or Salesforce. And most of these tools, these modern day tools, they come up with their own automation framework, automation testing framework. So you don't need a separate tool. You can use that package solution itself to automate. So so in that case, one key thing is the skills. As I mentioned, um, there are various technologies, various scripting and programming languages, but most of the cases, people who are good in one programming language, they can pick up another one. And modern day tools like the tools along with the off-the-shelf package, they don't need much scripting. Most of the cases, it's a configuration. You need to configure and you can do the automation. So need to consider all these aspects because, and again, the main thing is what is our objectives, what is the purpose, and think whether do we need a tool. If we need a tool, then go and explore, compare a couple of tools and see what is really fit for purpose, fit for our organization, or fit for our team. um, but some cases you don't have, there are exceptional cases because there is already a tool and most of your team members or team, they have knowledge in a different tool. In that case, you need to do a selective decision whether you need to ask the people to train the new tool or change a new tool. So again, my view is the automation is very wide and vast, and in some cases a record and playback will meet your it will provide your solution. You don't need any framework or any coding or anything. In some cases you need to develop a proper framework with libraries, exception handling, and all those things.
Okay, and just one other thing, from a management point of view, is about tool maintenance. From a whole management point of view, you have your whole team together. They're doing automation, they're doing thing, and then they have, like you rightfully say, they have a tool that is do Salesforce, and they have a tool that is used, doing APIs, and they have a tool that is used doing X, Y's, and Z's. But how do you manage the whole maintenance of those tools, and not just the maintenance, but how do you consolidate the idea that we have 15 tools to do all this, as opposed to 3 or 4 that would do it all?
Okay, there are short term and long term. Usually, what we do a cost benefit analysis, or probably develop a proof of concept and see whether this tool is fit for purpose. And if you know the underlying technologies, most of the tool vendors, they will suggest whether their tools support that a particular technology or platform. That is one easy way. But what we need to really consider, one is I covered this very detail in my book. One is if you are going for a licensed tool, mainly the license model, how exactly the license model work. These days, most of the tools are available on cloud, so you can use that tool, but they all have different licensing model. Some tools are pay as you go, some tools are based on number of users, some tools, when you use it, it wipes out your license, so it is based on usage basis. So many different factors. Now, another important area is tools are like technologies. 10 years back, we used a whole set of technologies, and now we are probably using a whole completely new set of tools and technologies. You pick up any tools, they keep on upgrade or release new versions. So I think some of you probably remember the way back, probably at 25 years, we started with Mercury Load Runner or Mercury Windrunner, and from there it is changed and changed, and it was not easy. Probably the functionality wise, it all or test director, it's all changed. Functionality wise, it may be probably look very same, but think about the infrastructure we need. Every time we need to upgrade the tool, we need a new set of infrastructure, most of the cases, and then upgrade the test scripts. So it's again, it's a marathon. So you need to, when you consider a tool for automation, consider these factors. How long we will be using this? How many cycles we will be using? If it is some cases just use it and throw it, then you may probably consider that level of a tool. You don't need a framework. And that's what I mentioned about record and playback. A lot of tools they provide that, and some cases that is enough because it is probably to support a user experience user acceptance testing. An end user, they don't know much about technology, so we are just helping them. So we don't need we need a quick solution probably for a couple of days. So so there are different factors, Larry, and there are costs involved in everything. That's what I see. It's a resource-consuming activity. So we need to see if it's people, it is infrastructure, it is a time and effort, and then by the time we develop something or we plan to develop, there's a new version. So we need to think all these aspects before we consider a tool.
Yeah, I mean that is good, and I mean it's and things with the whole managing the processes is all about, do we use open source or do we use a paid for, to get what's going on? And I know now, and we talk about now, not back in the day with Load Runner and Wind Runner and all these good guys. I mean, now we have so much open source tools out there that that we can leverage. We can leverage to get a lot done that we don't have to take. But it's cost, as like you rightfully say, everything have a cost, because even to do a POC with a tool, that's a cost.
Yeah.
Because I have to take my time to do it, and that's time not being spent on on actual work for the say. So yeah, it is like you say, it is a dilemma. But I think with the way technology have been the fast advancement in technology, we have the managers and them have a lot more choice, a lot more choice now than they had back then. Because back then was, like we say, Wind Runner, Load Runner, and a lot of these other ones that you just had, there was that. Now people building things as they go along. So my question here is, where do you see in the paid for tools in relation to the free tools? Where do you see the comparison, like I say, 3 years down the road?
Yeah, the open source free tools, there are plenty, and also the licensed one. Now, the kind of basic approach I follow, there is nothing free. Even though some of those things, it may look free, but you may need to invest at some places. Even if the tool is free, then it is your effort you need to spend. So the automation is changing a lot these days. One major fact I have seen in or changes I have seen in automation is it's kind of a shift right approach. The one reason is, as I mentioned earlier, companies or organization, very rarely they have time to wait. Products they need to launch, or they need to do the testing as soon as possible. Or if you are in a system integrator, so if you're working on a performance-based system, you may need that system before the next performance cycle. So you need to deliver. And people mainly think, how do my automation or testing team can support or that process. So if you take probably an agile or a test-driven approach, what we usually do, we develop the test scripts, unit test scripts before we develop the code. So first is test, and then we develop code, and then we run the code and see our test case are passed or not. If test case are not passed, then we need to go and check what went wrong. So that's a kind of a shift left approach. So mainly you develop your test first, and then develop the product. Now, when it moves to DevOps and CI/CD, it is the other one, right? We try to release a code probably on a daily basis to a production environment. And once you release your code to a production, means it is production testing. So either it is customers, end users, they are testing your solution. So it's a two. And these days, mainly, or probably 3 years down the line, we need tools who can really help us that kind of testing. To pick up issues or make the product more stable. Because I think going forward, 9 out of 10 cases, I can see people there, or at least 6 out of 10 cases, we will have requests or demand from leaders this product should be on production yesterday. That kind of situation. So we need testing tool to support. There may be cases like massive implementation in public sector or some or mainly they follow a very systematic gateways process. It can take time because they have their own reasons. But most of the other cases, the request from leadership is, okay, we don't want to waste time for testing, but we don't want any issues on production. So that is one reason the shift right is a predominant a trend in these days, because release your product to the production or give it to the end users and let them test. So you need something, a testing process, a test automation process who can really support to complete the testing and release the solution to production and probably test on production. Not that easy.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. And that's just one of those things that comes up and and come around with it. But when you talk about the whole shift right, shift left, and everything, it's all about getting it right. I'm not saying right lightly because I don't think we'll ever get 100% right. But then we have the point of where you push something into let's say into live in the production environment, and the thing is, do we really want to rely on the public testing the product and doing a lot of testing on the product because it's out live? Wouldn't that have a negative effect on the test let's say on the QA department? If we leverage it, we start to leverage the whole, okay, you know what, let's go, we want to run, we're going to put stuff into live on very frequently, twice a day maybe. Are we creating a vacuum somewhere where the QA department is going to get knocked for it when the public start to find so much? And wouldn't that cause downtime on the actual product?
Yeah, it's the same, Larry. What is the most important thing is what is fit for purpose. So we don't deliver probably to give a payment application to the customer and ask them to go and test and find the defects. So we need to see what is really fit for purpose in some cases, and defects also. So and then focus our testing there. It's a risk-based testing. After all, testing is a risk mitigation approach, right? If we see zero risk, then we don't need to test. So for example, we are releasing a product, and if the failure of that product, even if it fails, there's nothing that's going to happen. So when we calculate the risk of failure, and if you see the risk is zero, then we don't need to do any tests, because after all, testing is a risk mitigation approach. And some risk we can accept it, some risk we can mitigate, some risk it will be catastrophic. So we focus our testing. So and that's the same point. I agree. What is fit for purpose, that matters. So we cannot deliver everything, give everything to the end user and ask them to pick up the issues. But some cases, as I mentioned earlier, if we have an annual performance management tool, and we are kind of middle of the year now, and we need this by end of this year. If we don't have that solution by end of this year, then we need to wait another one more year, because the next annual cycle is next 2024 December. In that case, we need to focus what are our priorities when it comes to the features and testing, and focus there. Some areas probably we don't need it, or we can wait for a couple of more months, and then again focus our testing. So for example, our performance management system, it has a compensation management also. We don't want any mistake in compensation management, right? We don't want employees' pension or salary calculated wrongly. So we
Exactly.
need to focus there. But we can probably afford if some defects or bugs in that application, because we know it is not catastrophic, we can go back and change it. Like, for example, if it is mapped to a wrong manager, still we can go and correct it before people start to use that. But mainly when it's salary and compensation details, we don't want to make any mistake. So focus, we do a risk-based test analysis and focus on the area. So again, we need to decide what is fit for purpose, rather than focusing everything. And because when it comes to IT solutions, not everything is as equal as everything else.
That's true. That's true. So thanks for for hanging on and sharing all that, passing on that knowledge to the viewers. Any final thoughts before we wrap up? Any final thoughts you have for the viewers before we wrap up?
Kind of a final summary from me, Larry, and any questions from the audience, I'm happy to take. It's like your career. When you make a decision in your career, you think various aspects, right? You're leaving a company or joining a company, or you decide to do freelance. You mainly do a SWOT analysis, or you do an analysis and see what is really good for us, what's the risk. You need to do the same for automation, and especially if you are in a position to advise leadership, you need to do a thorough job. Otherwise, we may not get the result what we expect or what we thought. So it is a minefield, but when you use it carefully, you can get really good benefit. In way back when I used to lead a team in a product-based company, we managed to automate even 100% of test cases, and with multiple platforms like Linux, Unix, Windows, and IBM platforms. So multiple platforms, because platform complaints and massive returns. Those kind of scenarios. But there were scenarios I still I know we automated something and never used. We automated, delivered the solution, but never used. It's completely gone waste.
Yeah, I know about that. I know a lot about that. It happens. It happens. All right. Like I say, thanks for taking the time to share all this. And if any further questions come in, I'm sure you'll be happy to respond to them via email, as the case may be. So we had the other stuff. So I want to say thank you much for taking the time out to share with the audience.
Thank you for having me, Larry. Thank you for your time.
All right. Yeah. Cheers. You have a good one.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just to the audience, I'd say thanks again to Zappeltech for giving us the platform. And as we see, we had two very interesting speakers today, and we will try to continue doing this on a regular basis. So from me, Larry, as I say, I am the creator of Classy.js, and I'm the test automation architect for Oxford University Press. So you could reach out if you have any questions or if you would like a particular topic you would like to hear, or you think you know about somebody who would make a good speaker for one of these meetups. Yeah, feel free to reach out to myself on LinkedIn or elsewhere, and we'll definitely try to have them. So thanks again, and have a good one, everybody. Good day, good afternoon, good morning, and good night to wherever you are. Thank you.